Hello, 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 and
Good
welcome to
evening.
Monday Marriage Conversations. We are your hosts,
I'm Pastor T.
and I'm Pastor A,
Yes,
also known as
Thaddeus.
Anime.
All right. Good
So,
evening.
hey, we're glad to have you with us on this evening. We're glad to be back in the studio so that we can have host our Monday Marriage Conversations.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we had to do a replay last Monday when the rain came in. Unfortunately, we had flooding in our basement right around it was time to do the podcast.
Yeah, right. It happened at about 7:30 was when we found out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
7:30. So we had to go down there and getting water up, moving stuff around. And so,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we had to do a replay, but we're back tonight.
Yes.
We're back tonight.
Back in the studio
We're
tonight.
back in the studio tonight recording. And before we get into our lesson for tonight, there's some exciting news for our author, one of our authors. We're both authors, but Amanda has some new projects that are available. She's going to
Yes.
share them with you. So make sure you go and get yours. All right.
I've been flooding social media, at least
Yes.
Facebook and Instagram,
Yes.
with my two new devotionals, 21-day devotionals.
Mhm.
First is Courage That Conquers, and I
Mhm.
take you through the book of Joshua and how you can learn how to get through the battles, setbacks, achieve victory, and walk in the promises that God has for your life. So
Yeah.
that's Courage That Conquers. And then the next is I Am Her and She Is Me. This is near and dear to me because it speaks specifically to women. And I look at 12 biblical women and how their life is a reflection of our lives. And then I also look at how my life is reflected in theirs. So pick up your copies today. They're available on Amazon in both Kindle, digital format, and paperback copies.
Yes. Get your copy today. I've seen a lot of people on social media. They're getting their copy. They're flying off the shelf. So make sure you get your copy. You can get one for your personal devotions, all your husbands, and you can get one for your significant other, for your spouse. You can get one for your mother. You can get one for your sister. So go ahead on Amazon. What's those places again?
It's Amazon.
Go to Amazon. I Am Her, She Is Me.
Yes.
And what was the other one?
Courage That Conquers.
Courage That Conquers. All right.
Yeah,
So,
both of these will be great for individual study, but they're also good for small group
yes.
and,
Yeah.
and Bible study.
Yeah. Small group Bible study.
Yeah. So
That'd be great.
yeah, they'll be great for either of those formats. And Courage That Conquers, I wrote it for general audience, anyone from age 13 up. And I Am Her, She Is Me. I wrote it specifically for the women, but it's also good for ages 13 and up.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
I like that because that's in the younger generation.
Yes.
Something that they can study, they can use for a small group or for a young adult class.
Yeah, I didn't think about it before, but I did have this thought within like the last 24, 48 hours that
Mhm.
Courage That Conquers would make a great graduation gift for a
Oh.
graduate.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it would make a great graduation gift for a graduate that's getting ready to embark upon a new chapter in their life. And walking through the book of Joshua, and help them uh, confront some insurmountable odds, and then show them how they can overcome and walk through and walk forward into their promise.
Maybe you should do a social media post.
I will do that.
Targeting that audience.
I will do that.
For graduation.
I will do that.
Idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I'm working on a project also, but more to come on that. It'll be coming out later on.
Just in time for Father's Day.
Just in time for Father's Day. Won't tell you anything about it, but just stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. So tonight we're going to get into another lesson. Our last lesson we talked about was desire, deception,
and destiny. The danger of unchecked temptation.
That was a story of Joseph and Potiphar.
Yes, Joseph and Potiphar's wife, and then
one of the unnamed
wives.
Yeah, Potiphar's wife.
Potiphar's wife. That's how we knew her.
Other one was Lot's wife.
Lot's wife. That's how we knew her. Yeah, and when we talked about Lot, it was the danger of looking back.
Danger of looking back.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to talk about actually both of these individuals have names in this story. We're going to talk about.
She does have a name.
I said both of them have a name.
Oh yeah.
Both of them have names, and we're going to get into what their names mean shortly. We're going to talk about when wisdom meets foolishness.
Yes.
Years ago, and when we heard this message, first time I heard about this couple, I heard it. Our father in the faith, Bishop Napa, preached a message called "Cut the Fool Off."
Yes, yes, he did.
That was years ago, but he preached that message, "Cut the Fool Off." But we're going to talk about what do you do when you're married to someone who chooses constantly, whose choices constantly invite chaos. Well, who chooses chaos? Well, whose choices constantly invite chaos? What do you do?
Wow, that right there can open up a can
that choices that constantly invite chaos.
Yeah. Especially when you're trying to walk in wisdom, right? But your spouse is stuck in arrogance and recklessness because they're hard-headed, stiff-necked, and don't want to listen.
I mean, somebody said stuck on stupid.
Yeah.
They're stuck on stupid.
Yeah.
But they're stuck on arrogance, recklessness, and they're stuck on bad.
Yeah. So Abigail, this is the wife that we're talking about tonight. She found herself in that position. She was married to a man whose name means foolish.
Yeah.
That's Nabal.
Yeah.
And yet she didn't let his foolishness define her future.
Yeah. That's good. She didn't let his foolishness define her future.
Yeah.
And she, we'll find out later, she took matters into her own hands to ensure that they all had a future.
Yes.
To ensure that everyone had a future.
Can you imagine being in a relationship with somebody like that?
Wow.
I can't.
I can't
fathom it. Yeah. So in 1 Samuel 25, we meet Abigail, right? She navigated conflict, preserved peace, and changed the course of her life and a king's life.
Yeah.
All in one bold, spirit-led moment. Abigail's story is more than a tale of survival in a mismatched marriage. Now that's a subject in itself.
Mismatched marriage. That's a good message.
It's a blueprint for how godly wisdom can override reckless behavior. Have you ever been in a situation where you were needing, I won't say needing, but you were confronted with something that you had to choose? You could either do something recklessly, or you could walk away, or do something reckless or walk in wisdom.
Have you ever been in a situation or a relationship?
No, situation. Because right now we're not talking about so much the rest of the relationship. We're talking about the situation.
There has been situations where I can say there's been situations I've been in where I could have chose to be foolish, to be reckless, to be irresponsible, but I chose the way. I chose the wise way. But if it's up with some, well, I didn't, and I chose the other one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think about it,
yeah,
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the difference between a wise person and a
yeah,
foolish person. A foolish person would have immature tendency,
yeah.
but a wise person will have mature
Hmm.
capacity.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Hmm.
That's what I think. Okay.
Hmm.
So it, uh, Abigail's story is more than a tale of survival and a mismatched marriage. It's a blueprint for how godly wisdom can override reckless behavior and how God honors those who protect peace,
Hmm.
even when their surroundings are drenched in pride and provocation.
Wow. Wow. So this lesson is not just for the married, but for anyone who's ever had to deal, had to lead with wisdom in the face of someone else who's foolish.
Wow.
Now, now I definitely had a few of those
Hmm.
throughout my life. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, you had to lead with wisdom in the face of someone else's food,
Yeah.
or lead with wisdom in the face of someone else's uh,
Yeah.
chaos,
Havoc.
foolishness, havoc. Yeah.
Because sometimes
Hmm.
you're not just protecting your house,
Yeah.
you're preserving your destiny.
Yeah. 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 And sometimes, I will say this: you're not just. Sometimes you're not just taking. I don't necessarily want to take. Sometimes you're not just taking a loss per se.
Hmm.
You're preserving your destiny.
Yeah.
Sometimes uh, you have to decrease in order to increase.
Hmm.
Yeah, those situations I've been. You have to decrease in order to increase. So it may seem like that person, yeah, won or got the best, but you had to decrease in order to increase.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you chose. So it's the path you chose. You on the other side, you came out on top.
Yeah.
So yes, Abigail was married. He was married to a fool. Just think, can you imagine growing up and your name Abel? I hope there's no
Naval.
navel. I hope there's no navels out there. In this Hebrew language, navel meant probably mean fool.
Yeah.
But she didn't let his name or his behavior counsel her wisdom.
Yeah.
What happens when you're connected to chaos or called to peace? Wow, that's a great question. What happens when you're connected to chaos or connected to food? You were connected to someone whose name meant food, or she was called to peace. What happened?
So let's give a little backdrop to this story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while David was a fugitive,
Mm-hmm.
hiding in a cave, he had his band of men that was with him. And they happened upon this territory where some shepherds were watching the sheep while the sheep were out in the pasture. And David decided, because Nabal was um, from the tribe of Judah,
Mm-hmm.
right? He knew these individuals were from the tribe of Judah. He decided to protect them from the Philistines.
Mm.
And while they were protecting them from the Philistines, they didn't take anything from them. Okay, I believe this is like First Samuel, somewhere between 20 and 23, chapters 20 and 23, where this occurs. But it's in chapter 25 where David moved down to the wilderness. I'm reading from the NIV version to Moan.
Mm-hmm.
There was a wealthy man from Moan who owned property near the town of Carmel. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and it was sheep shearing time.
Mm-hmm.
This man's name was Nabal, and his wife Abigail was a sensible and beautiful woman. That's what the scripture calls her. Sensible and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But Nabal, what a descendant of Caleb, it says he was crude and mean in all of his dealings. So this story is rich in wisdom,
Mhm.
on for conflict resolution,
Yeah.
for emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
for marriage dynamics, and divine timing.
Wow.
Now, Nabal was a descendant of Caleb.
Yeah.
And you know, when I was studying this, I was like, that's interesting.
Mhm.
Because there's a scripture, yeah, there's a prophecy that I got to think of, but I'm going to get to it. Now, Nabal was a descendant of Caleb, and
Mhm.
Caleb was from the tribe of Judah, right? The original Hebrew word used is Kalebi, which can mean Calebite,
Mhm.
a descendant
And
of Caleb. And Caleb's name, I believe, means dog-like.
yeah. No.
That's a literal translation of his name.
Mhm.
And Caleb, he was a faithful spy leader from the tribe of Judah. We know the story for those of us that know the story of,
Mhm.
Joshua and Caleb. They were part of the 12 tribes that went in and spied out the land. Joshua and Caleb came back with a favorable report. They were ready to go and take the land, but the other 10 didn't do that. And
Mhm.
even in his old age, Caleb still was ready to go and fight.
Yeah.
To
Was.
me, that's tenacity.
Yeah.
That's that dog-like tenacity
Yes.
right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think that while Caleb was known for his wholehearted devotion to God,
Mhm.
Nabal, on the other hand, his descendant, was known for being foolish, arrogant, and rude.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
a contrast.
That's very, very dark contract between those
Hmm.
two.
Yeah.
But almost to, I would say this, both being uh both of them will probably, some people may call type of, uh uh what type of personality I meant to say
Type A.
type A personality, but one carried themselves different.
Yes.
One was had a type A personality when it came to his boldness and his uh standard for God.
Hmm.
The other one, he had a type of personality, but it was channeled in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Almost say it was more channeled towards foolishness.
Yeah. Yeah.
One was channeled toward devotion to God. The other one was channeled toward foolishness.
So then a takeaway from this story would be it's
Hmm.
possible to
Hmm.
come from a godly legacy
Yeah,
like Caleb, but still make ungodly choices
that's
like
true.
Nabal, like we said.
Yes.
We, we at the very beginning we said it's about choices,
Hmm.
right? But what do you do when you're married to someone whose choices constantly invite chaos?
Wow. But I like this. The legacy offers opportunity,
Yes,
but character determines destiny.
that is so good.
That is true.
You know what? I was thinking about that in regards to someone who's been in the news lately.
Yeah.
High up on the pedestal, making big bag,
Hmm.
but their character outside their studio
Hmm.
is questionable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that character can bring you down when you make bad choices.
Yeah. You can. You can. Hmm. And I think that, I mean, that's true because when it comes to character, we always talk about uh, gifting. Gifting can take you places.
Yeah,
The character will not keep you.
yeah,
But you can be gifted enough to be in the room, but if you don't have the right character, you can't stay in the room.
no.
The character
That's
will
good.
bring you down.
That's good. I
I
like
think,
how you said that.
and I think we have. I think because a lot of times I say that because a lot of times we celebrate gifting,
Hmm.
and that's good. But you have to have, you have to have the character, a balance, the character out with the giftings in order to stay, in order to build that consistency,
Yeah,
in order to stay in the room.
yeah,
Not saying that you're perfect or that you won't make mistakes, but you have the character enough to uh how do I say this? You have enough character to minimize
mm,
the impact. I see.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's like if someone were to come to me and tell me that you did something, I saw you doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for them, it's something that would it would be questionable for
Mm-hmm.
them to
Mm-hmm.
say that they saw you doing something,
Mm-hmm.
and they bring it to me. But then I'll be like, no, that's not him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not no. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not sure what it was you think you saw or you think you heard. More specifically, somebody say they heard you say something,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll come back. No, that don't sound like him. I know that's not him.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that's not the way. What you heard is not what he said.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have the character back to help.
Yeah, gotta have that
All
character.
right. Let's start. When the wisdom meets foolishness, Abigail grace in a chance marriage.
Mm.
Abigail's grace in a chance marriage.
So let's read the story
Okay.
because I just read verse 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So let's go and read this story. First
Okay.
Samuel.
Because it's important because David men had washed over. In the scripture, had washed over his sheep and goats.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can't remember in the scripture, but he had washed over them for a considerable amount of time to make sure no one got them. And all David was asking for, if I'm not mistaken, the scripture, he was asking for a portion. He wasn't asking for it all.
No.
He was asking for a portion. And you find the scripture.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is, I remember the story that I believe Nabal was, I don't know if he was drunk at the time or
They were at the Passover feast.
yeah, the Passover.
So they were in celebratory mood.
Okay. But even tell King David no, but to even just talk down to him
Mm-hmm.
was interesting.
Yep. So verse 4 says, David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep.
Yeah.
And David sent out 10 young men and said to them, go up to Carmel to Nabal and greet him in my name, and salute him thus. Peace be to you and your house, and to all that you have. I have heard that you have sheared. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we didn't them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your sight, for we come at an opportune time. I pray you give whatever you have at hand to your servants and to your son David. And when David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David, and then paused. And Nabal answered David's servant and said, who is David?
Yeah,
Who is the son of Jesse? He knew who he was.
Yeah.
There are many servants nowadays who are each breaking away from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to the men when I do not know where they belong? So David's young men turned away and came and told him all that was said. And David said to his men, every man gird on his sword. And they did so. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 remained with the bag. But now here's where Abigail's grace and wisdom comes in. One of Nabal's young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed at them. But David's men were very good to us, and we were not harmed, nor did we miss anything as long as we went with them when we were in the field. They were a wall to us at night and day, all the time we were with them keeping the sheep. So know this and consider what you will do. For evil is determined against our master and all his house. For he is such a wicked man that one cannot speak to him. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 measures of parched grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. And she said to her servants, "Go on before me. Behold, I come after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal.
Yeah.
So Abigail was married to a fool. What do you do when the tension exists when you're unequally yoked in purpose? What do you do?
When the tension unequally yoked
In purpose.
and purpose.
An unequally yoked purpose. In other words, you're not going the same direction. As the scripture says, how can two walk together except they be agreed? In this, Abigail and Nabal were not in agreement.
No, evil. Definitely.
And it wasn't even though they had come together and talked about it. He just made the decision, nope, I'm not going to do it. Not saying that in a relationship, not saying that you have to come to me and talk to me about everything that is going to do. But when it has an impact on the family, on our household, then it's good for us to have that open communication.
Definitely. You got to have a conversation. Have a crucial, we call it courageous conversation.
I'm just talking open communication.
Yeah. I'm agreeing.
Okay.
I'm agreeing with
So Abigail was wise, discerning and godly, but married to a man whose name literally meant fool. We said that.
Yeah.
We talked about his character, how he was arrogant, disrespectful, and I like to think perhaps spiritually blind.
But I think first of all, he could have at least at that point met with David.
Yeah.
I mean, been thankful and grateful.
Been the prudent thing.
Yeah. That you watched over your sheep, that you helped the sheep. If you didn't do anything to his, you would have been, you could have been thankful and grateful for that. So as you were reading that, you can tell he was kind of an ungrateful person and arrogant, because he said in the scripture you read, he said, "My sheep, my servant, all about me, all about him." But you don't know him. So you can tell you weren't thankful to what God had given you. You're thinking all this is because of your hand. So I think that's important. That's one of the important things that he could have at least been to David, been more respectful and been more grateful for the position that he was in.
I like that the fact that you brought that point up, because the scripture doesn't even bring out bring or infer or imply that he even thought about going and talking to him. He just automatically said,
he didn't care. He didn't care that that David had said that word. He's like, who's David? Who is David?
Then he say, who is this son of Jesse? So he knew who he was.
Yeah. So at this time, I don't think David was not king.
So David was king over, I believe, Judah.
Maybe he was on half the kingdom. It was a united kingdom.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a united kingdom. He was only king of Judah.
Okay. So he knew, like you said, who was the son of Jesse. So he knew him. He knew of him. But maybe he was just making, like you said, he was being arrogant, being foolish, and being provoked.
But Samuel had died. Now you got me thinking.
Okay, we'll
answer that question a little bit later.
I like this statement here. You can be connected legally, but divided.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
What do you do in a relationship?
Mm,
And just using this one as an example where there is this imbalance,
mm,
where you're not walking together in purpose, you're not walking together in agreement,
mm,
you're imbalanced emotionally, and you're imbalanced spiritually.
mm.
How do you think a person feels when that exists within a relationship? How did you feel when we walked through that season? I'll make it personal.
Um, you know, how did I feel? Mm, critical.
Mhm.
I felt,
Who was hypocritical?
I felt our our relationship was hypocritical. And
Mhm.
I feel like this, our Christian marriage
Mhm.
was critical because we were not in agreement.
Yeah, yeah,
We were walking in falsehood.
yeah. I get you. I follow what you're saying. I get
Um,
you.
I felt, of course, disconnected, but I felt hypocritical, disconnected. I felt, um, yeah, I felt the imbalance.
Mhm.
I felt that no, this is not how um, how this should be,
Yeah, yeah,
not how this should
yeah. I felt frustrated,
be. Mhm,
and I felt like we were in a tug of war, not necessarily
mhm.
competing with each other, but we were pulling against each other,
Yeah, yeah,
and we weren't walking together. It wasn't so much that we were walking in different directions, we were just walking different.
yeah, yeah,
And it was like we were tugging and pulling, trying to get the flag to one side.
yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that's important because a lot of times, I like to say, you can be connected legally but divided spiritually. I would say sometimes I would say at one point I would say that how does money not how do you prevent this is maybe you in premarital counseling or when you're getting
Yes.
ready to marry someone, you would you would make sure, okay, you would okay, let's make sure we're both going in the right direction spiritually.
Yeah.
You know, not I mean not only in the other direction, but I'm saying, okay, where are we spiritually? If we're going, you
Our
know,
values are aligned.
our values are aligned, right?
Okay.
That would be one thing. But even sometimes you can start off with the values aligned, but it's possible,
Yeah. That's what it's good to
Yeah.
come back in and do those checkups, those
Yes. Yes.
rechecks,
Yes.
check in with each other.
Because some people say, man, we started off well, we
Good.
thought our spiritual values are aligned. We were both going, but along the way, it became and then it comes back to like you said that you lose connection,
Hmm. Hmm.
or you haven't made sure to make sure because you can start off online, but you can get out of line.
Yeah. That's like somebody saying, I want a saved husband. I want a saved wife.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. They're Christian. They
yeah.
are saved.
Mhm,
That's the value you got. You want a saved husband. You want
mhm,
a saved wife. But what are the values? That's like, to me, that's a macro value.
mhm.
What are the micro values that underpin
Under my
that?
yeah, under pen, like you say,
Underpin
the
that.
support.
Yeah, that support that. Because you say you want to save husband or save wife.
Mhm.
Uh, how often do you intend on attending a church service?
Yes,
Do you
yes,
plan on raising your children in a Christian
yes,
household?
yes.
Do you plan on tithing?
And I'm praying.
Do you, yes, on praying?
Do you plan on reading the book? All of that
Yes,
things that support a
yes,
Christian marriage. You just can't say, "Hey, we're a Christian marriage," and then just go forth. And we just yeah. Because you don't, especially if you don't have those things, you're not doing those things that
yeah,
support or undergird a Christian marriage,
yes,
a Christian relationship. If you're not doing those things,
yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
have to have those.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So the macro
yeah,
is I want to save husband, I want to save wife. the micro is the things that you do to make sure that you both stay safe
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and you're walking in this
Have you
space
both
of life.
stay in alignment.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that. You can be connected legally, but divided spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
A foolish partner cannot cancel a wise assignment.
That is so.
A foolish partner can't cancel a wise assignment. Yeah. Some people bring favor in your house, others attract fight. Like fights.
Fight.
Some people bring favor into your house, others attract fights.
Okay. That goes back to the spouse thing.
Yeah.
Okay. You got your macro of what you
Yes.
want in your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want this person to bring favor, or do you want them to bring fights?
I would choose favor.
Yeah.
And not fight.
Favor. Favor.
I like
Now
that.
we can fight together.
Yeah.
We're gonna fight the devil. We're gonna
Yeah.
fight the enemy.
Yeah.
We're gonna fight so that we can make sure that we maintain our Christian walk, our Christian marriage.
Yes.
We're gonna fight for it.
That's good. I like that.
Mhm.
All right. Abigail's intervention. We didn't talk about the points. First point was married to a fool. Second point is Abigail's intervention. How wisdom can diffuse war.
Yeah.
So look,
Yeah.
we read the scripture. How did Abigail diffuse the situation?
She rode on her donkey and came down hidden by the mountain, and behold, David, his men, came down opposite her, and she met them.
Mm.
Now David had said, surely in vain have I protected all this fellow as in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has repaid me evil for good.
Mm.
May God do so and more also to David, if I leave of all who belong to him one male alive by morning. And when Abigail saw David, she hastened and lightened off the donkey and fell before David on her face and did obeisance. Kneeling at his feet, she said, upon me alone let this guilt be, my lord, and let your handmaid, I pray you, speak in your presence and hear the words of your handmaid.
Mhm.
Let not my lord, I pray you, regard this foolish and wicked fellow Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal, foolish, wicked is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your handmaid, did not see my lord's young man whom you sent. So now, my lord, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, seeing that the Lord has prevented you from blood guiltiness and from avenging yourself with your own hand, now let your enemies and those who seek to do evil to my lord be as Nabal. And now this gift which your handmaid has brought, my lord, let it be given to the young man who follow my lord. Forgive, I pray you, the trespass of your handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my lord a sure house, because my lord is fighting the Lord's battle, and evil has not been found in you all your days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the reputation of, I think this kind of, as you were reading it, I'm reading this story. I'm looking at, there could be implication that Nabal knew what David was doing. Or maybe there was an agreement. You know?
Went through.
Maybe there was agreement between Nabal and David. It doesn't say, I'm not, but it can imply maybe there was agreement because David said, I did this. I watched over this. I've done this. I watched over his sheep. I watched over everything he had. Now I'm just asking for a portion, and he's acting foolish.
Yeah.
I'm just as he's reading it, I'm just thinking, could there have been some type of agreement or beforehand that he's like that Nabal just didn't honor his end of the bargain, just told him, no, I'm not doing it.
I don't know. I never thought
It
about
doesn't say
but
that, but it just as you was reading it made me think. So read it. What did David say first? He said,
Hold on. Go back. Okay, now David has said this, verse 21. Surely in vain have I protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has repaid me evil for good.
So when you say he has repaid me, I'm just saying maybe there was something maybe there was an agreement, or maybe Nabal knew that they were doing that, and he reneged and didn't pay him.
Yeah.
It could be.
Okay. Yeah. Could
Let's
be.
talk about
And
that.
perhaps that's why David was
That's why
expecting.
he was expecting. I'm thinking maybe he was. Because why would you get so angry? Because unless there was no expectation.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That's what I'm thinking.
Never thought about that before.
Maybe there was an expectation.
Yeah.
Of hey,
reciprocity right
that
there.
we're here, we're watching over you, your sheep, we're watching over this. Maybe there was an expectation.
But the scripture does say it was sheep shearing time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was time to pay up. The neighbor didn't want to pay.
Yeah. So Abigail intervened, and her wisdom diffused the conflict.
Yes. Yeah. Her wisdom came to diffuse. She diffused because David was ready for war.
Yes, he was. And that maybe that's a good question. I never thought about that, because there's a lot of things that scripture doesn't tell us. The story isn't complete. It's complete in scripture as recorded, but there were other things that were going on that we may not know about. So that's good. So Abigail humbled herself and brought a peace offering and spoke directly to David's destiny and not just his anger.
That's good. That's good.
So she prevented unnecessary bloodshed and preserved her house.
That's good. It made me think about how the decision, in this case, the wisdom, the intervention, and decisions of others, how at their times it helps protect the family.
Yeah.
It helps protect legacy, because if you had let this happen, or you had let us go down this road,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we'd have made some bad choices.
We would have been wiped out.
Yeah, we've been wiped out.
We're not going to finish this today.
No,
we're going to have to come back and do part 2.
No.
So the wisdom doesn't panic.
Yeah,
it prepares, it pursues, and it preserves. And that's exactly what Abigail did.
Yes, she didn't panic.
And she was already prepared. She pursued, and then she preserved.
Yeah, she went and had to make right whatever decision her husband, which is his namesake. She said his name, that is his name. His name is Fool or Foolish, and he is being foolish right now. He don't understand what you're about to do, but I understand what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And so I want to make this right, not just for me. I'm doing it for the whole family.
Yeah.
For us.
Our whole household. Because their servants were involved. Their servants were out there working.
They say he's gonna kill everybody. Everybody. So she, so like you said, she prepared, she pursued, and preserved. Sometimes the wisest move in marriage is knowing how to stand in the gap, not in the way.
Like that.
I love that. That's a bar right there.
Yes, it is.
Sometimes the wisest move in marriage is knowing how to stand in the gap, not in the way.
I like that.
That's sweet. I always get sweet. You can. That's a good one right there. Stand in the gap and not in the way.
Yeah.
And how do you stand in the gap? You stand in the gap by prayer. You stand in the gap with support. You can stand in the gap by encouraging. There's many ways walking in wisdom. Walking in wisdom. There's many ways you can stand in the gap and not stand in the way.
Yeah.
And not in the way. Yeah, I love that.
You don't have to match foolish energy. You can override it with divine strength.
Yeah.
That's that preparedness. Yeah. That's that pursuit. And that definitely means you're not going to panic.
Abigail had a strategy. We had a strategy to overcome the foolish mistake made by the foolish Nabal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the beautiful thing was she used what was in her house or what was
Yes,
already there.
she used already there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now some people would say, "Well, ma'am, well, did she disrespect? Did she disrespect her husband? No, she didn't disrespect him.
She
She
preserved his
preserved
life.
him. She preserved his life. She didn't disrespect him. So, what do you what? So, let's get down to the nitty gritty now. What do you do? And this goes for both sides, whether it's husband or wife. In a situation, what do you do? How do you handle situation? Once you know, okay, I need I need to have a strategy here. Or it's a financial strategy, or it's a uh, say for instance, there've been situations not that I know, but I've heard of. I don't think we have been in a situation. You have to remind me. Maybe we have. Well, situations I know about that I've heard of growing up. I've been other people where there were people about to be put out of their house because somebody went and gambled all the money. But someone had to make a decision to go and do something. You know what I mean?
I hear what you're
You know
saying,
what
but
I'm saying?
I don't know. I wouldn't know how to handle that myself.
Yeah, those are tough. I mean, those are real life situations.
Yeah, I know it's a real life situation.
Yeah.
I haven't. I don't know of anyone specifically that has done that, but I do know of instances where women that we knew, they were saved, their spouses weren't. They had a budget. They were given money to go and buy groceries. And sometimes it would cover the full cost, sometimes it wouldn't.
Yeah.
But the spouse didn't want to pay tithes.
Yeah.
So what the wife would do would pay tithes of the money that she would be given for groceries in order to cover the house.
Yeah.
That to me is wisdom, and that's strategy.
Yeah, that's the strategy. That's wisdom. I like that.
When your wife, your spouse doesn't want to pay or give their tithes, but they give you an allowance to take care of household needs, they tithe off of that which was given to them.
Yeah.
To preserve their house.
Preserve the house. That's good. That's good. Because we were at about when First Corinthians was a 1 Corinthians 7. What a sanctified wife. The sanctified wife sanctified the husband. So we talked about that. That was about a few lessons ago. We talked about how the sanctified wife sanctifies the husband.
Yeah.
She really covers a house in so many ways.
Yeah.
So that's what I was kind of getting at that example. That's a good example. So those those instances. Those are real life instances where people have really had to come up with a strategy in chaos.
Yeah.
In chaotic times, and or we say I have to do something to prevent, to preserve. I have to prepare something, pursue something, or to keep us in this house, or keep us from being hungry, or keep us from being out in the street.
Now, there are times not necessarily somebody gambling the money away, but they've been drinking the money away and not paying the bills. And there were stories of people doing things that we would not consider to be godly in order for them to maintain their residence.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to bring that up and talk about that, but I do know stories of that.
Yeah.
People drinking up and spending their money on alcohol or drugs, but not paying bills. Yeah, but we'll have to come up with another example of how that for part 2.
Yeah.
Because if we continue on, we'll be well over an hour before we complete this.
We're gonna close for tonight. We'll continue with this on next week, but still go over the points again. Talk about married to a fool, the tension of unequally yoked the unequally yoked purpose, Abigail's intervention, how wisdom can diffuse the war, and the last one we talked about.
Whatever.
Oh, it wasn't talk
Yeah.
about that. Well, those the
So we
first
only
one.
hit 2 of, I think, 4.5 points.
Yeah,
Because
two of the
we
five.
spent some time giving a little bit of backstory for this particular
Mhm.
discussion that we're having. Because you need the backstory, I think, in order to understand how
Mm.
Abigail was able to use strategy and wisdom to
Mhm.
preserve her household.
Yeah. So we'll get into some more. Got some really deeper discussion questions on next week. We'll get into that on next week. So you want to promote again? Tell us more about your book, the two projects that you have released for this week, both released
Yep,
in the last couple of weeks.
No, just the last 4 days.
Last 4 days, okay.
Released.
You talked about
Courage.
it before at the top of that hour, and tell us about it.
Courage That Conquers.
Yep.
I posted a video earlier today where I read forward for Courage That
Oh, did you?
Conquers.
Okay.
Yes. Chapter 1 is the beginning, call to courage. We're using Joshua 1:6. Be strong and very courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Each devotion has a reflection, has the devotion part that's written by me. Then it has reflection questions, journal prompt, and a prayer. And in the paperback copy, in the back of the book, there's space actually at the end of each chapter for you to do a reflection of what your study was for that particular devotion. And then the same thing in I Am Her, She Is Me. As I said, this one is personal to me because I share a lot of my personal stories in each of the reflections. The first one we talk about Eve, the mother of us all.
You have anything about me in there?
Yeah, you're in here. You're in here, interspersed. I talk about our story. I do. I talk about our story.
I have to read it.
So that's in here. And there is for each devotion a reflection, my personal reflection. It's an I am declaration. Like for day 1 devotion, I am her first breath, Eve. The I am declaration says, I am her formed in love before I ever carried anyone else. She speaks to me. I was named for what I would give, but I needed to be held too. You don't have to carry it all. You are more than what you do. The reflection prompt, who first placed responsibility on your shoulders? How can you begin to mother yourself with grace today? And then each one ends with.
Awesome. Sounds great. I gotta get and read it. So get your copies then, go to Amazon and get your copies of both those devotionals.
You can search by using my name, Amanda Randolph.
Okay.
Or you can search by using the title Courage That Conquers and look for the brown cover page with the shield and the sword on the front.
She said earlier for Courage to Conquer, it'd be a great gift for someone that just graduated from high school.
Or getting ready to graduate
from college. So
I am her, she is me. Then you can look by using my name or look for the small cover.
Yeah.
Yep.
For your mother, for your sister, for your auntie.
Yep.
For your daughter.
For your daughter.
Get that. Just get both copies.
Just get both copies. And please, if you purchase the book and you read it, please leave a review. I would love to hear from you.
All right. Well, that's our show for tonight. That's our podcast for tonight. We thank you for joining with us on Monday Marriage Conversations. We hope to see you again next Monday at the same time for part 2 of
When Wisdom Meets Foolish. David-Nabal and Abigail.
All right. We'd love to see you. And we'll see you next time on Monday
Marriage Conversation. God bless.
Bye.